Hi, everyone. This is the second lecture for week one. Okay, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how we are going to approach or study the Bible, which will differ from the way that you have read the Bible in the past and in churches. Okay, and it's called the academic study of the Bible. Okay, and again, by Bible, I mean the Hebrew Bible, otherwise known as the Old Testament. And the next lecture, I'm going to talk about why we will call it the Hebrew Bible in this class. Okay. So the Bible comes from the Greek word ta biblia, which means the book. Okay, and though it's called the book, likely a better translation or a better understanding of what the Hebrew Bible is to call it the books. Okay, so the Hebrew Bible really is an anthology or a collection or even a kind of small library of writings, okay, which were probably first transmitted orally, then was edited and put together over more than 1,000 years, okay, by many different groups of people in different settings and for various motivations. Okay, indeed, the text in the Hebrew Bible span from around 1000 BCE to around 160 BCE. So you can think about how long a time that is. Okay, and it's important to think about the Bible or the Hebrew Bible as an anthology or a collection because it tells you a little bit more about how you should read or view or interpret the biblical text. Okay, and by calling it an anthology, what you're really saying is that this collection of books, though it may be bound together in one text, okay, that there is not one singular voice, no one theme, okay, probably no one message, okay, and instead that this is a sort of inconsistent collection made up of different writings, different genres, from different times with different ideas and maybe different messages. Okay. And speaking of different genres, if you start reading the biblical text, you'll start to realize that you have everything from love poetry to law codes to laments to myths to prophetic recordings, even some kind of historical writings that sound like history. Okay. And just as we wouldn't read a cookbook with the same expectations as we would read love poetry, okay, or a will or whatever, what calling the biblical text an anthology means is that you should not therefore expect to read every book, every passage of the Hebrew Bible in exactly the same way. Okay. Instead, in some ways, you have to treat them almost in sections or in books. Okay. Okay. Now, the other thing that you assume by calling the biblical text or by knowing that the biblical text is an anthology is that it will have a multiplicity of voices, okay, or parts of the Bible will disagree with each other, okay. So do not be surprised if it says one thing in one part and a different thing in another part. Okay. Okay. Now, the Bible as we have it, okay, is, as I said, a collection of books, and it's a collection of books that for some reason, and when I talk about the canon, I'll go into some of the mysteries of it, that for some reason survived, was utilized, okay, and then were collected, okay, and somehow was passed on. And what this means is that there are lots of other texts from around those time periods that for some reason either did not survive, was not used, and for, again, other mysterious reasons, not canonized. Okay. Okay. So, so these are really the sort of special books that somehow began to be seen and utilized as different and special. Okay. Okay. And so in the next lecture, I will talk more about canon, okay, and what canon means. Okay. Now going back to the biblical text, okay, and the way that we're going to read it for this class, okay. By calling it an anthology, I'm expecting I'm saying something very particular about how we're going to read this text. Okay. So, so these are some of the assumptions about how we are going to approach the text that will be evident in this class as we read the biblical text academically. Okay, so in the academic study of the Bible, the first idea, which I've said many times now, is that the Bible is not the product. It is assumed that the Bible is not the product of one mind. Okay, and you have to think about how this is different from the way that you approach it in churches, okay, or in other religious contexts, where it really is assumed to be the product of one mind, God's. Okay, so in this class, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that we're going to approach the text as if it is not. Okay, okay. Along with that idea, another starting point that we have in the academic study of the Bible is that the biblical text, is not assumed to be a moral or theological textbook. Okay, and what I mean by that is, of course, you can find moral or theological messages or lessons in it. Okay, and people will find different ones. Okay, so I'm not saying this is impossible. Rather, okay, in this class, what we're going to do is assume that that is not the main goal of this text. The main goal of this text is not really to tell you a moral or theological lesson or message. Okay, and when I say interpretation, we are going to interpret the text with a different goal in mind. Okay, so the focus of our interpretation of this text in this class will not be to find a theological or moral message. Like I said, you can find one, okay, I don't care. But in this class, this is not assumed to be the sole purpose of reading the text, okay? Instead, the goal of reading the text in this class and through this approach is to read the biblical text to see what it actually says, okay? And then to figure out what it actually means, okay? And to support your interpretation, okay, what you think it actually means by pointing to textual evidence, okay, what the Bible says. So in this class, the focus really is on text, okay? What does it say? What do you think it means? And how can you defend what you think it means by pointing to the text itself and not to your inherent feelings or your inherent beliefs, okay? So so it's text focused, okay? Now, this may, like I said, it always is a bit jarring for a lot of students to approach the text this way, okay? But as you'll see, I hope, this is really a better way to approach the Hebrew Bible, okay? Especially in an academic class, and here's why, okay? The reality is that even if you guys are all Protestants and so forth, or most of you guys are, not everyone here shares the same theological beliefs or assumptions about the Bible, okay? And so as a result, you need a common ground in which to talk about this text, okay? And with the academic study of the Bible, it has its own assumptions, okay? So no approach is assumption-free, okay? But what it does do very well is that it refocused the reading and the interpretation of the Bible, not on theological assumptions, okay, which people will disagree with, but on the text itself, okay? So in other words, in the academic study of the Bible, you prove or show that your interpretation is correct, not because of, because you intuit it or feel it, or because God, you think, is speaking to you, okay? But because you can support it with the biblical text itself, okay? Which to me is a rather, respectful way to approach this literature, okay? To think about and to read what it actually says instead of what you want it to say. Okay. Relatedly, there's a second reason why studying the Bible this way is important or more useful. Okay, and it sort of has to do with what happens afterwards, right? You will probably, if you become a minister, which I think most of you want to become, you will get sort of an enterprising child, teenager, who will come to you because they've been reading the text and have encountered a difficult, challenging, ethically problematic story, okay? How you deal with that enterprising reader will probably affect them quite a bit, okay? What the academic study of the Bible does okay, is that it teaches you, okay, how to engage with the text, even challenging parts of the text, fairly and on an equal setting, okay, without getting your feelings in the way. Okay, so it'll teach you to approach the text by helping you to learn how to engage with difficult parts of the text without, in some ways, you know, making you kind of shut down. Okay, and you know, I'm sure many of us have stories where we have asked a kind of challenging question in these religious settings only to have it be shut down. Okay. Okay, so that's another thing that the academic study of the Bible teaches you. The academic study of the Bible is also useful, like I said, in that it you know, it helps you, or it teaches you to focus on context. Okay, and what I mean by that is that it helps you not to decontextualize the text, i.e., pull it out, okay, in bits and pieces, okay, so that you can twist it and make it say what you want it to say. Okay. What the academic study of the text tells you is that no, you have to read the text, right, as closely to when it was written, okay, as closely to what it actually says as possible. Okay. So what it's really telling you to do, or teaching you to do, is to not manipulate the text. Okay. So that's another reason why it's important to read this way. Okay. Lastly, you know, personally, the academic, you know, way to approach the text really better fits my own pedagogical goals. And my main goal, as I see it, is to help you carefully read the text, what it actually says, instead of what you want it to say, okay, and help you really figure out or become better at asking questions about it, okay? So notice here, I'm not saying I will teach you how to get better answers, just better questions. Okay, and thirdly, my goal is to tell you, okay, briefly, albeit sometimes, the wide range of answers that interpreters in the past have presented to these questions. Okay, so really, this approach to the text better fits these pedagogical goals. Okay, so special note: because we're reading the biblical text this way, okay, you will not, in this class, you will not read the Hebrew Bible through the lens of the New Testament. Okay, I know that this is a very tempting thing to do. Okay, here's why. Okay, like I said, in this class, we're actually going to read what it says in the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible was written, edited, you know, put together many centuries before Jesus in the New Testament. Okay, so likely, okay, it may be a coincidence. It's more, you know, the Hebrew Bible does not have Jesus or the New Testament in mind, because it's very hard to have in mind something that does not yet exist. Okay. Also, another reason why you're not going to read the Hebrew Bible through the lens of the New Testament in this class is because the New Testament, as you will see next semester when you take Introduction to New Testament, is that it's a very, very, very complicated text. Okay, the New Testament has its own genres, its own writers, its own intentions, its own different historical contexts. Okay, please do not read a complicated text like the Hebrew Bible by bringing in another complicated group of texts like the New Testament that most of you do not have that much knowledge about. Okay, so try to keep things simple. Okay. Lastly, you are not going to read the Old Testament through the lens of the New Testament. Okay, because okay, like I said, the purpose of this class is to read the Hebrew Bible. You know, you're gonna read what it actually says. Okay, when you bring in Jesus or the New Testament, okay, when you know, when it is not really there in the Hebrew Bible, what you are doing is precisely not reading what it says. Okay, so rather what you're doing is replacing what it actually says with, I'm going to assume, what you want it to say, in the hope that it will give you, I guess, more psychological support for your faith or belief system. Okay, don't do this. Okay, you know, respect the text enough to let it say what it says. Okay, Christians have been reading the Hebrew text for thousands of years, and they've all survived it, okay, without silencing it or overwriting it. Got a little dicey at points, true, okay. But, you know, I mean, if reading the Hebrew Bible, you know, a part of your canon, if that leads you to lose your faith, then you need to re-examine the strength of it, okay? Okay, so we're going to, as best as possible in this class, try to read the Hebrew Bible through by reading what it actually says. Okay, last note. It doesn't really fit in here, but whatever. I'm going to be referring to God as a he in this class, and I know that there's different whatever. Okay, and the reason is because in the Hebrew Bible, as you will see, God is, for the most part, not 100%, but for the most part, portrayed and characterized as a male. Okay, so in respecting the text and then reading the text for what it actually says, I'm going to be referring to God in the way that I think he is portrayed, which is as a male. Okay, so that's the end of the second lecture. I promise in the next lecture won't be as kind of, like I'm diatribing it. Okay, thanks.